Guys, so we're moving toward using a few media at one time. We're going to use our white charcoal pencil, graphite pencil, charcoal pencil, a little bit of vine charcoal perhaps, and of course you have your erasers and ink. Last week we used ink and you will use it again today. We're going to use the gray Canson paper. So you've got a few sheets of this. You can use front and back to do these studies. I've got a few objects here in front of me that I would like to work with that are sort of gray in tone. I have a few of them, and I also have this ping pong ball as something white. So I have one piece of Canson paper here, and this is the paper I'm going to draw on. So I'm setting my objects up on the gray paper so that I have a reference point that will feel true to the tone that I'm working on. So basically I want you to just set up your still life in front of you, a couple of objects, and this will just be sort of exploratory and at the same time working with understanding some form. You can begin just by gesturing in some of the bigger shapes. I've started to gesture in some of the shapes of this piece of rock in front of me, and I'm going pretty light, but you can be the judge of how you want to do that, thinking about trying to show where the shadows might be the most dramatic in showing form and light. Not really worrying too much about composition yet because this isn't going to be a final piece. We're just trying to figure out how the light is working here on the gray paper, how it feels to work with 3 different media eventually. So you've got these things kind of sketched in here, thinking about shape of shadow. I have my objects lit so that I have sort of dramatic shadow shapes, just as you've done in the past. And I think that that's pretty helpful. So I'm just kind of articulating where those might be in pencil. And you can kind of course, let some of that pencil come off if you feel like it got too deep. Use your eraser. And the next part of the process I'd like you to do is to use the vine charcoal. And when you use this vine charcoal before, I instructed you to use the side of it. And just to see how it feels to kind of tone some of this shadow shape with that, and to see the difference in value between your gray Canson paper and the gray of the vine charcoal. And then you can kind of push that in to your shadow areas and kind of see how that feels. Okay. And then you could take your eraser and pull out some of those lights again. And if you want, you can use your little pencil eraser and do the same. So we're really combining the idea of or we're starting with the reductive method with charcoal. So you can, it's very delicate. I'm sure this just looks like a lot of smudging from where you are. And it is, and that's great. Just to kind of see how these grays work on here. Okay. And also to kind of find the form and the light, and to get used to how that's working on here. All right, then I'd like you to take your ink, which again you'll have set up in your palette over here. I'm using this little one to the side that I did before. And I have sort of a few puddles of ink and something to blot on. You know, you can fill up your palette over here and do the same type of thing. I forgot to mention when you used ink the last time that you can keep a piece of paper on the side too to sort of test out, you know, the value of your ink wash. So I'd like you to just kind of, for me, I'm just using a very light wash and going in and, again, really generally, but at this time I'm being slightly more careful to not work on top of the lightest areas, the areas that I know are getting a lot of light, and just kind of filling in where I know there's sort of either dark shadow or middle tone shadow, and seeing the shapes again with a different medium. So we've used pencil, used a little charcoal, you've used an eraser, and now we're using a brush, and just kind of seeing the difference also in the way that we might handle that medium. Putting in those middle tones even on the lightest object. And noticing how different the tones appear on white paper and how they appear with the context of the tone that the gray paper presents, and what a softer contrast that is. Okay. And you can kind of let things dry in between and walk away from it if you want. But start to notice how when you build the value on top of each other, how that might work, just like you did last time. I would go pretty delicately. I would avoid the blackest black for a while here. Just using the grays to wash in those tones that you see. I guess I am using this palette now. So this just had some cool bleeding going on here. That's I'm following along with because I really like the way that works. Okay. So you're going to want to be delicate with that and let that dry. You could start another little study in another area to see working just with ink first if you want to. So again, this is just your test page where you're going to see how the materials work on gray. And I'm going to pause here and we'll continue on when this dries to show the next step.